Hey guys, it's Will here, welcome back to the channel. Now a few days ago I did a video talking about sort of my initial impressions and thoughts on the new edition of 40k that has just been announced and should be with us in about a month or so, possibly less depending on which rumours you subscribe to. And today I wanted to do another video talking a bit about the rules changes. Now what we know so far for definite is that it's not like a total rules rewrite, but rather it's a a refinement of the rules, an evolution. So your codexes are still valid, your Psychic Awakening books are still very much valid and written with this edition in mind. So it's not going to be like they completely change how the wound chart works or the turn sequence or anything like that. It's going to be just subtle changes. So they did a video talking about 9 great things about it, most of which were rules changes, and what I've done is I've just picked out a few of them that particularly interested me, with really a view to sort of talking about what we know and what we don't know yet, what questions we have, and a little bit about how I think this will affect the game. But obviously it's a bit too early to say, and they will be adjusting points values accordingly. So just because a certain thing gets subjectively better doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to be better in the game after all's said and done, because it may have its points ramped up accordingly. So the first thing that was a real big thing for me is tanks and close combat. Tanks can now shoot in close combat, and this just makes a lot of sense, because otherwise you had silly scenarios, and I've used it to my advantage as well, where like 2 little Eldar guys can tie up a Lehman Russ battle tank and prevent it from doing anything, and with the right special abilities or stratagems could make it entirely useless and permanently locked down. Which doesn't make a great deal of sense. The tanks can now fire while in combat. Now what they haven't said is this going to apply to monsters too? I would imagine so, because to be honest the borderline between tank and monster in some races isn't entirely clearly defined. I mean, a Tyrannofex is clearly a monster, but it behaves a lot more like a tank. And the other limitation with the thing is, what are they shooting at? Are they only allowed to shoot at the unit they're in combat with, like in Age of Sigmar, or are they only able to shoot at units they're not in combat with? Because, I mean, think about a Lehman Russ tank. That battle cannon can't actually fire at something that is right in contact with the front of the model. For one thing, you blow the tank up, and secondly, I don't think the barrel actually dips that low. Or are they just going to be quite free about it and say, yeah, they can just still shoot anything as normal? We shall have to wait and see. Next thing, and this kind of connects to tanks a bit as well, and shifting the meta a little bit in the favour of armoured vehicles, is how blast weapons now affect hordes. Basically, blast weapons now get the maximum number of shots against a horde unit. Now, what they haven't defined is what constitutes a blast weapon. I would imagine they will probably add a note as to what weapons they are. It'll just be anything with a random number of shots, perhaps. And they haven't defined what a horde is yet. I would imagine 20 is probably a good sort of break-off point. That's when certain large units get additional buffs, like it's when orcs get an additional attack is at 20, but it may be lower, 15. 10, I wouldn't say a horde. It's 10 Space Marines, you don't think of that as a horde unit. But again, we'll just have to wait and see. And these two changes together mean that Lehman Russ battle tanks, which weren't exactly bad before, just got even better. They can shoot in combat. Their blast weapons now do the maximum number of shots. Vindicators quite like this as well. Might actually get some use out of my Vindicators in this edition. But again, it's all up in the air, we'll just have to wait and see. Now, terrain. They've talked about terrain affecting the game a lot more. They've not given much detail on the practicalities of it, but the idea is that different terrain will do different things. It won't just be a case of this blocks line of sight or this doesn't. And they have implied in one of their Q&A sessions that it's line of sight blocking terrain. You're not going to get around it just because you can just about see a tiny bit of the model's left ear through a window in that building, a door in the next building, and you can just about see it. I think those kind of janky shots are going to not be a thing anymore, which I think makes sense. If something is clearly designed to block line of sight because it's a building, it's going to block line of sight. and we shall just have to wait and see for details on that, but I think it's cool. Hopefully terrain is going to feel a bit more sort of just sensible and a bit less gamesy. Again, we'll just have to wait and see on that. I'm saying that a lot, sorry. Next thing that is really cool is the way they're changing the command point system to reduce the need to bring like soup and Lucky 32 formation type things, just formations that exist purely for command point spamming, because it is a little bit silly. Yeah, my orcs brought 30 grots and 2 weird boys, and suddenly my war boss can do like twice as many stratagems. It doesn't make a lot of sense, but it's how you play 8th edition really at the moment. You have to take a lot of command points, particularly certain armies like Orcs and Space Marines have a huge number of really cool stratagems, but have to really build their lists to maximise their command points. Now command points are going to be more unified across the board, and overall you're just going to get more of them. So while soup will probably still be a thing, it'll be soup for the flavour rather than soup for the command points, and that's good. I like that. And the final thing that I thought was really cool was the new Crusade game style. Now this seems to be, although this is a narrative campaign system, and anything that says narrative campaign but actually has some rules, I'm instantly excited, and finally got some more people up for some narrative type stuff once we can actually get back to gaming, and this could be a really good launch pad to that. We don't quite know how it's going to work yet. I'm thinking something along the lines of Path to Glory, but not quite the same sort of thing. Adjusted, upgraded, modernised. It may also be a little bit like the 4th edition campaign system. 4th edition 40k had a really good system for units gaining experience and abilities over a campaign, but that was a very long time ago, and I can't remember it hugely clearly, but I remember it was a thing, but nobody ever really used it, but there were very detailed rules in the book. Yeah, when this comes along, I want to test play it ASAP. So, once lockdown's over and once 9th edition is here, anyone wants to do some sort of narrative type thing using the Crusade system, I will be very up for that. Yeah, there's certainly a lot to look forward to. The changes we do know about aren't limited to these, but these are the ones that particularly stuck out to me. There's stuff to do with flyers as well, and general balancing over the size of missions. Yeah, it's going to be good times. I think these rules are for the good of the game. They get rid of some of the silly things, like being able to stop a tank shooting. I had a particular example where I was playing a Lehman Russ, not a Lehman Russ, I don't play Imperial Guard, a Land Raider Redeemer with my salamanders, and some orcs ran into it, and that stopped it from shooting. If I backed off, I couldn't shoot. I couldn't shoot in combat either. It's like, you're kidding me. This thing has flamethrowers. Why not just frickin' fire the flamethrowers? But no, it couldn't. Just wasn't allowed to. Yeah, that's makes it a bit more thematic, a bit less gamesy if it could do that. So that's really cool. And yeah, overall, just some good stuff to look forward to. So hopefully I'll see you guys again soon, and hopefully you guys found this video interesting. In a few days' time, I'm going to be uploading another video that's going to be going back to more what I've been doing lately with painting stuff. Particularly this one is going to be my top tips to be a better painter, so definitely stay tuned for that. And yeah, hopefully see you guys again soon. Bye.